Hey guys, and welcome to an Aspie's Point of View, where I give you my opinion on stuff. So today I wanted to make a video about my experience in the public school system and the amazing teachers that I met along the way. I was very different growing up from the other kids. I didn't have a whole lot of friends and I was bullied a lot. But there were some teachers in my life who just managed to fix everything for me and pushed me to succeed, and many of those teachers I'm still in contact with today. My second grade teacher was the first male teacher I had ever had, and in fact at the time he was the only male teacher in my elementary school. And I was so excited for my first day of class because I had heard such great things. He was a teacher that had taught older kids, and so I figured, that he would be just this amazing teacher to have, and he was. Very quickly at the beginning of the year, he realized that several of us in class were a little bit ahead of the rest of the class, and so he actually provided us with special work that allowed us to be challenged while not taking anything away from the class or the other students in the class. And it was the first time I had ever had a teacher who kind of did something special for me to make sure that I wasn't bored. My grandmother used to teach my brother and I in the car. So we learned how to do math in our heads, we learned how to spell. Pretty much anything you could do, we did. And so I knew how to multiply and divide in my head. I knew how to take percentages. I wasn't going to be challenged sitting in a second grade classroom learning that stuff. And that teacher that I had made all the difference in the world by allowing me to be challenged. The following year in the third grade, I had another teacher who was absolutely amazing. She decided every year she was going to put 2 plays on in her classes. And I was an avid reader. We would go to the library twice a week, and we'd get to take out books, and my grandmother actually volunteered in the library. And I found this book. It was this big, thick anthology of plays, and I read it cover to cover. I was so enamored with all of the stories and the dialogue and how people related to each other. I felt that it was the coolest thing on the planet. And my teacher actually took one of my suggestions for the play, and it was a play called The Littlest Witch, and it was about this witch whose broomstick was broken, and she had to try to get the other people, pumpkins and skeletons and all sorts of people to try to help her fix her broomstick. And I was actually given the lead role in that show of the Little Witch. I don't know if it was because I really deserved it, if it was because I was the one that found the play, or if she was trying to make it so that I was socializing with more of the kids in the class. But whatever the reason, I will never ever forget that experience, and I'll never forget her. And even though she retired on my last day of third grade, she lives in my heart as one of my favorite teachers, and I can never forget that. In the 5th grade, I had a teacher who I've already made a video about, Miss Shapiro, and she was phenomenal. And I don't want to cry, but I was a very shy kid. Didn't have a whole lot of friends, and so what Miss Shapiro did was she put me in charge of the morning announcements. So every morning I would leave my morning program, my before school program. I would go to my teacher's room, take her lunch bag, bring it to the teacher's room, put it in the refrigerator, and then I would go back and I would read over the morning announcements. I would meet up with whoever was doing the morning announcements that week and show them how, tell them, how to go about giving them, and really just kind of working with my peers. And what was really cool about that was that I got to meet, talk to, socialize with every student in the 5th grade at my school, one-on-one, because they would come in to do the announcements and I would get to talk to them. And I did not understand it when I was a little kid. I never really knew why she had picked me to do this, but I do now. And the fact that she knew how much trouble I had socializing, and so she built my days on the fact that every day I was going to socialize with someone from my grade that I wouldn't necessarily have talked to. It was one of the best things anyone could ever do for me. When I got to middle school, I became very close with one of the special education teachers. And she was not ever my teacher. But from the very first day of school, she and I had a connection. I remember my best friend and I walked up to the school on the first day, and this teacher was standing out front greeting the school buses. And she gave us this big smile and said, "Welcome to the school." And she saw how nervous I looked. I was terrified. I wanted to go back to my elementary school. And she saw how terrified I was. And she gave me a hug and just told me it was all going to be okay. And I don't really love being touched. But there was something about the way that she communicated with me that just made me feel 100% better. And this teacher and I ended up becoming very, very close. We would eat breakfast together every morning before school, and I would help her set up her classroom in August and take down the classroom in June, and I would go out to lunch with her. I'd help her walk her dog. She ended up coming to every major function in my life. She was at my bat mitzvah. She was at my school graduation from high school. She was at my grandmother's funeral. She became a part of my family and still is. And even though she moved far away and we only talk every now and then, she has had such an impact on my life. Moving into the 8th grade, my vice principal actually took the forefront in my life, and he became the principal my 8th grade year, and I had nowhere to go before school. My best friend had just moved away. I didn't have anyone to go into school with anymore, and he had worked out with my parents that I would get dropped off every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. I would spend an hour and 25 minutes in the office getting the announcements ready, sorting through notifications that needed to go out to classrooms, helping the substitute teachers settle into their assigned rooms, pretty much being an office assistant. And what made that particular principal stand out in my life was that my 8th grade year was filled with a lot of bullying, and it was not just from kids anymore. I had a teacher that was bullying me, and I had one of my friend's parents that was bullying me. And he just kind of cradled me in this safe haven of the office. And, you know, I was allowed to eat lunch there if I was having a bad day, and I was even allowed to bring a friend or two into the office to eat lunch with me. But probably the biggest thing that he ever taught me, and this is going to sound funny, but he would tell me to be the duck, because a duck lets the water roll right off its back, and I needed to be the duck. And I still think about that to this day. When somebody says something and I get upset, I stop myself and I go, Robin, be the duck. The last teacher, or two teachers, that made a huge impact on my life were in high school. My freshman science teacher and my TV teacher. So my freshman science teacher, we became very close right away. He was young, which was a lot of it. He understood me in a way that most people didn't. And he and I ended up getting very close. I worked for him as a teaching assistant, graded the papers for his classes. Even when I wasn't a actual teaching assistant, I would still go in after school and clean up his classroom and grade his papers. And, you know, he gave me somewhere to go after school. He gave me something to do, and he always gave me an ear to talk to. And my TV teacher, who got me into all of this to begin with, he gave me a safe haven. Our TV studio was in the basement, and I would arrive at school between 6 and 6:30 every day. I would bring my breakfast with me. I would sit outside in the hallway outside of the TV studio, and I would eat my breakfast. And my TV teacher would come in every morning and look at me and say, "Hi, Camp Robin," and then he'd walk into his office and he'd sit down. I'd give him about 3 minutes to settle in, and then I'd get up off the ground and go into his office and join him. And then I would get about doing my daily tasks, whether it was editing a piece to go on to the news, or setting up the cameras, setting up the audio board, making sure the graphics were good, making sure, as we got into more and more technology, that our teleprompters were up and running. I had a purpose, and I had a place where I felt needed. And much like in elementary school in the 5th grade, when I was meeting everyone by doing the morning announcements, there I was meeting everyone by being an integral part of our Flyer News community. And it gave me an outlet for my creativity. It gave me somewhere to go, something to do, and it gave me the safe haven of the basement. And I will never forget that. So, in honor of Mr. Deneen, Miss Welch, Miss Shapiro, Mrs. Cormier, and Mr. Kanovich, and Dan Devlin, this video is for all of them. And this video is my way of saying thank you for making me the person I am today. And even though I wasn't totally happy in the public school system, thank you to the public school system for bringing those teachers to me. Until next time, this is an Aspie's point of view. If you guys had any great teacher experiences, make sure you share them in the comment section below, and I look forward to reading them. Bye, guys.